thoughts like this that catch my troubled head when you're away, when I am missing you to death. When you are out there on the road for several weeks of shows, and when you scan the radio, oh, I hope this song will guide you home. They will see us waving from such great heights. Come down now, they'll say. But everything looks perfect from far away. Come down now, but we'll stay. I tried my best to leave this all on your machine, but the persistent beat, it sounded thin upon listening, and that frankly will not fly. You will hear the shrillest highs and lowest lows with the windows down when this is guiding you. They will see us waving from such great heights. Come down now, they'll say. But everything looks perfect from far away. Come down now, but we'll stay.
Trouble been dog in my soul since the day I was born. Worry, 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 worry.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everyone this day? We're going to try that again. Good afternoon. How is everybody today? Wonderful. Welcome to Sundance 2016 here at our Samsung experience, and most importantly, welcome to the Deadline panel on Tallulah. I believe you guys are in for a treat. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the action. Go ahead and begin to put your hands together for our moderator, editor-in-chief of Deadline, Mr. Mike Fleming, who will be joined by the Tallulah director and writer Sean Hayter, and star of the film, which is Ellen Page. Get on your feet, put your hands together for this group.
Welcome, everyone. See, I have my Samsung tablet here, so all good. So now, we're here to talk about Tallulah, which premieres this weekend. And so I have to my left, Sean Hayter is a writer and producer of a Netflix series, Orange is the New Black. And before this festival even started, Netflix bought streaming rights to her feature directorial debut, Tallulah. Now that film expands a short film that she made called Mother, and it's premiering tomorrow in the U.S. Dramatic Competition category. And then I have Ellen Page, who has navigated a career in which she's managed to do both big commercial films like Inception and prestige films like Juno, for which she was Oscar nominated, and most recently Freeheld. She plays the title character in Tallulah. And why don't I ask Sean a question, and then you'll get an idea of the plot and how the movie unfolds. Now, Sean, it's an interesting movie, especially for a guy like me who raised 3 kids and was kind of a hands-on parent, and now I'm in that zone where I'm waiting for grandchildren. So some parts were a little upsetting for me, but give us an idea of how experiences in your own life sparked the idea for this film, where basically the title character, Ellen's character, ends up with a beautiful little baby after she sees that the child's mother is a little bit indifferent and neglectful and has her own problems.
Well, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I worked as a nanny for a lot of the high-end hotels in LA, so it was the Beverly Hills Hotel or the Four Seasons. And I had a lot of really strange experiences with very strange parents and women that I felt like shouldn't really have had children or maybe had them for the wrong reasons. And after a particular experience I had with a very crazy mother, I considered stealing her baby. And I didn't, but I wrote a movie about it. And so I'm glad, because I'm here and not in jail. But I think I really was interested in exploring the idea of who is meant to be a mother. And interestingly, I wrote the film when I wasn't a mom and became a mom shortly before making it. And I think it was really important because it's ultimately gave me I think I wrote the movie from a place of judgment.
Right.
Of really thinking that this mother was a horrible mother and deserved to have her child taken from her. And I think once I had a baby of my own, I realized it was much more complicated and it's really hard. And so it gave me a lot of empathy, I think, for all of my characters, and that was important.
Yeah, that's the thing about the movie that's intriguing. Now, Ellen, your character Lou starts out as this kind of rootless baby napper, but as her own complexities and her own issues with her mother and her childhood unfold, it becomes hard not to sympathize with her. Tell us what about that character made Lou so appealing to play.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of Lou's, essence or her characteristics. She can be very sarcastic, very impulsive. She can seem maybe potentially disassociated. Comes a lot from her childhood and her own trauma. And when she ends up interacting with this child, and yes, deciding to take this 15-month-old. That ends up being a really healing process for her. She sort of decided to live her life by running, by deciding, I can't rely on anyone, so it's much easier for me to not need a person, or to not be needed. And that's how she chooses to live her life. And of course, she develops a bond with this little girl, and it teaches her that, she can love and be loved. So the experience ends up being very healing for her.
Well, now, Sean, when you directed the film Mother, when you said you were judgmental, how different was it? Because, they're not here today, but Allison Janney's character plays the mother of Lou's boyfriend, and Lou shows up on her doorstep with this child that's not hers, but Allison Janney's character, who was kind of a bit of a suffocating mother, and her son kind of fled all of a sudden is faced with possibly being kind of a grandmother. So there's that dynamic, that sort of mother-daughter dynamic, and then Tammy Blanchard plays this sort of trophy wife who has this baby, and clearly she is poorly prepared, she's very self-absorbed. When you made the short film, how different was it? Because you gave these characters an opportunity to grow into fully fleshed out situations. So there were no stereotypes or caricatures there.
I think in the short film, the character of Carolyn, who plays this mother, and I always saw her as, I always cared about her. I felt like she was a toddler herself, and like you said, she was ill-prepared to handle the journey of being a mom. I don't know that anyone is really prepared to handle the journey of being a mom. And I think, and so in the short film, she really just served as the antagonist. It was just that hotel scene. And so I was interested in painting a picture of this kind of narcissistic, lost, desperate person who's looking for a companion and treats this, she finds this girl eating off the room service trays in her hallway and assumes she's housekeeping and, you know, brings her inside to babysit. And so I was more interested in that character portrait, and I think in the feature I really wanted to redeem her. So I wanted to find a character that you started out hating and really at least cared about at the end, or had some hope that she was trying to change. And I think all of these women are looking for mothers and in the process of becoming mothers, and they're all kind of good people making really bad decisions.
Well, were there some things that maybe you discovered yourself? I mean, because in that scene with the child's actual mother, when Lou comes in, this child is walking around without a diaper. She's crawling around on a pedestal, like a kind of a balcony, and these are the things that drives Lou to say, this child doesn't belong with this woman. In your own, as you begin having kids and stuff like that, give me a sense of how maybe there were things that made you realize that this wasn't easy at all.
Anyone who was on the plane with me yesterday, I apologize because you probably witnessed exactly what you're talking about. It's really challenging. My daughter is 2 years old. My son, I was 6.5 months pregnant when we made the film, and I actually went into labor the night that we locked picture. So having children was very tied into making this movie. I had my movie baby and my real baby that I made at the same time. But my daughter had colic when she was born, I think, and my husband and I were a little cocky about having kids and kind of felt like we were good with kids and we were going to handle it. And I think we were so thrown in those first 3 months, and, you know, kind of, it gave you empathy for these people out there who make really rash decisions, and not that we would be those people, but I think it kind of opened my heart to that it's a much more complicated thing. And I think a lot of women, there's a lot of pressure to be nailing it all the time as a mom, and I think a lot of women feel like they're flailing or failing, and there's no way to express that. And you know, you need to post like cute pictures of your kids on Facebook and pretend everything's okay. But I think sometimes it's just, you know, you're sleep deprived and you're crazy, and it's challenging.
Right. Now, Ellen, what would you say Lou really was looking for? Because she was very defiant. She seemed to not really want to have any roots at all. And then maybe you can explain, there's something in there that has to do with gravity that was kind of a clever thing with special effects you don't often see in Sundance pictures.
Yeah, I think Lou consciously was not looking for anything. You know, I think Lou is always moving and always running, and that's because she has experienced a lot of difficulty in her past. And I think, like a lot of us, when, you know, whatever issues or emotions rise, you know, we have a tend to want to, you know, get busy, be distracted, etc. I mean, that's just a part of being a human. And hers is to, you know, a next level extreme. She wants to live in her van, and that's the life she chooses. And so I don't necessarily think she's constantly, consciously searching for something, but I think this situation leads her to find some level of comfort and find someone who cares for her, and that being the Allison Janney character, who who sees her for this girl who has struggled and deep down is, just this like delightful little kind of pure little sweetheart, and I think in that moment she realizes that's something
Yes.
she didn't think she wanted before.
Well, do you want to mention the gravity thing at all?
Well, I have to, you said special effects, and I have to tell you, they were not really special effects. Like, Ellen actually dove in the Hudson River. Ellen and Allison actually went up on condor cranes, and Allison was 50 feet in the air in Washington Square Park, and she did it herself. She did it better than the stunt double, and over again. So you guys will have to see the movie to know what I'm talking about, but these actors were totally game and did them all herself. So there was a little bit of rig removal, but that was pretty much it.
And so was that sort of a metaphor for a desire to connect, to have roots? I don't know, I'm describing things that the audience hasn't really seen yet, but can you give us an idea of where you were going there?
There's Ellen's character, Lou, has a speech in the movie where she talks about what would happen if the gravity in the world stopped, and she just floated off the planet. And I think she is this very rootless character who feels that she doesn't need people and so she's sort of living this untethered life. And I think there's a deep-seated panic in her of, I'm going to be a pigeon lady in a park somewhere and not have anything, even though she would never admit it as a character. I think that's in her somewhere. And I think all of these characters are kind of disconnected and untethered. And I was interested in trying to explore that in magical realism and taking the movie out of just being a, drama, comedy of people kind of in rooms talking and try to make some of those emotions a physical reality. And so that's sort of exploring the theme of gravity in a way that these characters are all searching for connection and trying to feel like they want a reason to be on Earth.
Now, you're launching this film here at Sundance, which just seems like, and especially for a film like this, which feels very much like a true indie, it's a good place. And Ellen, now you were telling me that you came here with a film that kind of launched you. Can you tell us what, it's a bit of a different picture, but tell us what it was like to come here with Hard Candy.
It was a really brand new kind of crazy experience for me. I was 17. I was in my senior year of high school, and I was 17. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that film, and it was just kind of a whirlwind, exciting experience, and it is what launched everything. I will say in some ways, Hard Candy is weirdly similar because I think the character and what propels the character and their actions do have a moral ambiguity to them, and is definitely going to be an ethical question for the audience. I think everybody will watch the film and have different feelings about what's right and what's wrong, and who's the hero, who's not, are they all, what have you. So I think in that sense the movies are actually quite similar.
And now, Sean, you obviously have a relationship with Netflix from your series, Orange is the New Black, and before this festival even started, a deal was made for the streaming rights. So this movie will be on Netflix, and it's still up for grabs in terms of domestic distribution rights to start it out in the theater. Can you give us a sense as to why that deal was made beforehand? And what these streaming services now are, because they're really kind of changing the dynamic and possibilities for these smaller independent films.
I think the way that media is distributed is changing. When I started writing on Orange is the New Black, I remember it didn't exist. We were like, what's Netflix? We're writing on a web series? Like, what are we making here? And I think I've been impressed. Like, I think they have great taste, and I think they're really smart people running things over there. And it's a way to reach a lot of people all over the world. And I think, obviously you have an aesthetic as a filmmaker and you want your film to be seen in a theater, and that's definitely the way I want to reach people. But I also know that it's not a possibility for everyone. And with 2 little kids at home, I watch movies on Netflix, and people in Europe watch movies on Netflix, and in South America, and it's sort of expanding all over the world. So I think it's a way to get a lot of eyes on your story. And it was exciting to me to have that opportunity to kind of get out there and reach a lot of people.
I was a print reporter my whole life, and I always felt that trees had to die in order for me to be relevant. And now, I'm on deadline, and you just don't feel it. When you started working on the series, did you kind of, were you shocked at the penetration of a streaming service, no network? Can you give us a sense of what, were you reluctant at first to sign on to the show because it wasn't going to be on a traditional network?
I think we just didn't know what it was. And it felt like, okay, we're writing a show about these, Jenji Kohan is brilliant, and she has a vision, and but it was kind of like, okay, here's this women in prison show. It's all female characters. It's, going to be on this web series of sorts. It's not going to exist on a network. And I think, but that opened up so many possibilities because, we wrote the whole season before, we didn't shoot a pilot, there wasn't that same process, and I think we had a lot of freedom to explore these characters and kind of attack the series in a really unconventional way, and we were all, I think, so excited and shocked at the way it took off and became this cultural zeitgeist. And my first episode, I wrote this line where Crazy Eyes, Uzo Aduba's character, throws the pie. She says, "I threw my pie for you" to Piper. And I remember being in New York and walking by. It was on cell phone cases, and there was a "threw my pie" truck, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is this line is everywhere." There were T-shirts, and someone sent me a onesie that said, "I threw my pie for you." And so I think it was just super exciting that this show, with a lot of people of color and all women, and that it took off in the way that it did. And had an audience that wasn't just women. It was all kinds of people who were excited about it.
Well, it's remarkable how the models are changing. And Ellen, I imagine, are you most comfortable now working on a big studio film, or kind of being in this sort of shifting realm where you can act in edgy indies? You just came off Freeheld, and that was one. As you go forward with all these possibilities, what's crucial to you when you make your choices?
It can be a lot of factors. I think sometimes it's a hard thing to articulate. It's a feeling, it's an excitement. It's you feel inspired, you feel moved, you laugh, you want to work with specific people. It can be all kinds of things. I think mostly it's, I feel like that's going to fulfill me. I can't wait to dive into that. And I feel so privileged and fortunate to have been able to explore both kinds of filmmaking. Needless to say, shooting a movie in 20-some days is very, very different than shooting a movie over the course of 4 or 5 months. But it's amazing to get to experience both sides of it, and they all present different challenges. I love it.
What's it like diving into the Hudson?
It's
murky?
Probably what you'd expect, yeah. But it was fine. I was in and out, yeah. But it's definitely...
Ellen did say, I surf in Malibu, so I'm not afraid.
Oh, yeah. The water's dirty in other places. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's nice, and I'm sure that you being a mom made it a little easier for you in working with that gorgeous little baby who was so spot on. I thought maybe she was kind of a method actress.
Oh my God. Well, you should watch our dailies. You might change your mind. I think it was, there's a reason people don't cast babies in movies that are that age. And I think, it was a real challenge for my actors who were total troopers to be in a scene with a 15-month-old who's totally unpredictable. And, suddenly there's a scene where the baby's not supposed to be crying, but she's going to cry. So let's, rewrite in the moment that I think Ellen, there was our lead baby, this baby, Evie, Ellen basically had to hold her for the entire shoot. That was the only way we could get her to work was for Ellen to have her in her arms constantly. And so you're probably really strong at this point.
Honestly, yeah, it keeps you in shape for sure. But it was really special, and it was a whole new kind of challenge that I couldn't have even, I couldn't anticipate. And of course, you read the script and you're like, oh, a co-star of mine's baby. I know that it was not until we started that it was like, wow. But I will say there was something so special about it, because of course your main concern is not acting. It's, is this baby happy? Is this baby safe? Is this baby okay? Are the parents okay? Is everybody okay? Like, that's the main concern, clearly. And so there's something really special where it just forces you to be so present, because you cannot predict you can't predict anything. So you kind of have to throw everything away. You have to throw you can't intellectualize it. It's just about being present. So for me, working with that baby was maybe one of the most fulfilling acting experiences I've ever had. That being said, yeah, it was definitely challenging.
My own daughter was 16 months when we shot the movie, and so I think there was some, I had her toys. I sort of had tricks that I had used with her that I felt like I was trying to implement. I think at one point our entire crew was on the floor singing, and if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. We were completely stopped down. And Chris Columbus, who's one of our producers, came by set, and he was like, we were in Washington Square Park. He's like, this is the most relaxed indie set I've ever been on. And I'm like, that's because we can't shoot because the baby's eating yogurt. We're not moving. Everything's stopped down on set. And I think, honestly, me being pregnant, I think, and visually kind of a nurturing figure helped the parents, because I think that was challenging. They sign on to this movie and they were total troopers about it, but there were times that there were really hard scenes and the baby was crying and we had to go again. And in a way, it probably helped me to be this maternal figure that I'm like, I'm not gonna hurt your child. I'm not gonna do anything with your child that I wouldn't do with my own child. I'm gonna protect her, but we need to get this scene. So I think, in a way, probably it helped them feel comfortable.
Right. Well, you know what? We're at the point where we'd like to open it up for some questions, if people have them. I know it's. I'm gonna choose you out there. Oh, you.
Yeah, I don't memorize the whole script ahead of time. I think because naturally, if you've, we got together, with Allison to read it through or rehearsing what, you can be very familiar, of course. But usually I'm getting ready for everything for the next day for the most part. For me, I'm not really a person with a technique, to be honest with you. I think weirdly, when I was younger, I was more like, oh, I have to be in the space that I'm feeling. I have to make myself feel or really darker, and something's really shifted where actually for me it's about being as open as humanly possible. So it's like cracking yourself open. It can be you could be going to shoot the most devastating scene imaginable, and it'll be about blasting an Arcade Fire song and just dancing like a nut all alone. And so I just sort of walk in and there's something that's just open. So for me, I have no sort of technique. Everything I do at the beginning in regards to how do you feel emotionally connected, talking about physicality in regards to Lou, the way she talks, that's sort of all dealt with. So when you're going to do it, it's just about being open and being as present as you could possibly be. And working with the baby really helped that. Honestly, it was kind of a gift in that way. So.
Yes, right here.
Wow. Well, I think as most things would come down to patriarchy and misogyny, I suppose, There's that great line in Veep where she's like, if men got pregnant, you could get abortion at an ATM, essentially. Who knows? But, I think that joke resonates for a reason. Of course, the thought of women not having the ability to choose what they can do with their body is utter insanity and heartbreaking. And a lot of people around the world, including in America, deal with that issue. And
I think it was something that weirdly is kind of thematic with the film because I really wanted children, and I, have always been a kid person and always knew that I wanted that as part of my life. And I think one of the ideas I was exploring in making this movie is that in every woman, and it's maybe not, and it's a learned skill, and it's something that you have to evolve into, and it's really a death of your former self, the person who could like walk out the door and do whatever they wanted at any given point. And so I think it is really important because no, it's not in every woman to do it, and it should be a choice because, it's a huge life changer, I'm coming up to Sundance and like dragging these two little kids with me who I love so much and can't imagine them not being a part of my life, but it definitely, there are people who it wouldn't work for, it's not anyone's decision to make except for the individual.
And I think it's too a testament to Sean in regards to the complexity and the beauty in Tammy Blanchard's character, who I take the baby from, and who at the beginning of the film, you probably won't like. And as crazy that it is that you're seeing this young woman take the child, a part of you is like, I get it. And of course, later in the film, we learn more about her, and all of the blame is on her, and she's left alone. And I think it's a testament to Sean for making that such a full complex character, and or the difference between working with a female director who has small children and a male director who has small children. I think everything becomes about like, oh, your kid, where's your kid? What's doing with your kid? And no one's really saying that to the guy who has the baby, And I think there's these examples of particularly women with careers who are made to feel like ashamed or guilty for pursuing their dreams when, we don't do that as much.
And you can do both at once. It's just insane.
And now we have a room full of people who will walk out and say, no kids for me. I'd just like to throw in, kids are rock.
Kids are amazing. Kids are amazing. I love my kids.
Yes. Yes.
Oh God, I haven't even gotten there yet. But I actually think in relation to the movie, Ellen's character, Lou, is very much off the grid. Like, she's somebody who lives out of her van. She doesn't have a cell phone. She is completely untethered. And in that way, kind of a very pure soul and pure character. And that was an interesting thing for me. Like, someone who had no sense not only of repercussions or consequences in her life, but kind of lived by her own set of morality, moral rules, and had created this kind of moral landscape for herself because she wasn't influenced by all of these other things. And so I think in contrast to these other two women, Allison Janney's character and Tammy Blanchard's character, I think the character of Lou is very much like this pure, kind of feral soul who's not influenced by any of those things, and I was interested by that. Like, she acts on her instincts, and there is none of that noise around her. And what happens when someone is looking at this person and going, like, in this moment, this child needs to come with me, and I don't have any other influences to counteract that. I'm going to just go with what my gut says. And that was a really exciting character to write because I think we are so inundated with that stuff all the time. And if I get on like WebMD one more time to Google like what's going on with my kids, I'm going to go insane. So I think it is kind of a dangerous.
I do that, but for puppies. Yeah.
Right. Every time I send Ellen a picture of my baby, she's like, "And this is my puppy."
Yes. Yeah.
Well, now, I have a couple of questions from fans that I was asked to ask. So, for Ellen, beyond the way you normally do it, what special things did you prepare specifically for this role?
I guess, wow, good question. Specifically for this role, I would think I think we talked a lot. I think it's because Lou is an interesting character to play because she is, she's very disassociated from like her true emotional core, if you know what I'm saying. You know, she's suffered trauma, and the way in which we see her is, of course, who she is, but I think there was a lot of sadness there. And we worked with, how do we figure out how to marry those things? How do we merge those? How do you play someone who's like deeply human, but is still, shall I say, a bit of a character? Like it's going to be you're going to make some choices. So I think for me, we talked about like physicality, how she spoke. We used kind of words like
Feral.
Yeah, and like toddler hair, she's always she just doesn't give a shit, in this way that's actually really freeing. And something, and I think, so there was probably potentially more dialogue about more nuanced behavior that I wouldn't necessarily have, that I would just, be in the present with. And this was more thought put into how does she exist in her body, and how does she see the world, and then how does that make her navigate the world?
And I think Ellen and Allison are both so naturally funny and have so much, amazing wit and comedic timing. And so I think with both of them, the fun was really finding like the windows to that other element, like that really kind of dark pain side, and choosing the places where we wanted to see into that person in that way. And that was work that we did ahead of time that I thought really was great.
Well, there's one more question for you, Sean, and you sort of answered it a little bit with the injection of humor to lighten the tone, of a pretty serious subject matter. But someone asked, how did you go about making this a story that might appeal to everyone?
I think I'm always more interested in telling a story that is about human behavior, and not totally specific to the characters. But oddly, I think the more specific the character is, the more universal it is, because you can really relate to that person and the ride that they're on. And I think there's humor in everything. I mean, I find myself laughing and joking in like the darkest of places. And so I'm always interested in finding. And interestingly enough, when we were trying to get the movie made and find financing, I think it was hard to explain this tonal balancing act. It was like, no, it is very funny, but it's also, you're gonna cry, I hope, So I think that was a dance in finding the right actors who had, Ellen is very inherently charming and funny, but I knew that there was this intense, skilled, dramatic actress in there to sort of balance out those moments. And I think it's a dance to find that tonal line so that it's something that, people want to laugh. Like, you want to have that moment. And I think if you're going to move people, you want to allow them that release of laughter as well, so that they have an openness and an ability to go to a place emotionally that they might not go to otherwise.
Well, I would urge everyone to see Tallulah. It's a terrific film for Sundance. It is complex, and it is offbeat, and it is surprising, and that's exactly what makes this festival so special. I'd like to thank Sean, and I'd like to thank Ellen. Thank you very much.